Hi, guys. So welcome back. Welcome back to my podcast, to Sean's Magical Odyssey. So, guys, I'm really excited today. As you've been listening to past podcasts, I've had some very exciting people on my podcast. And today, I finally finagled my best friend, Joe, to join us today. So I'm very excited about that. Joe lives in Detroit, so he lives across the river from me. And it's funny because I can actually kind of look out the window and up the river, and I can actually see the area that he lives in, where we live that close together. But because the border is closed, we haven't been able to see each other. So the best thing that we can do right now is communicate over social media. And Joe agreed today to come on my podcast. Joe is a very interesting person. He's had a very interesting life. It's one of the things that has drawn me to him. It's also one of the things that has really cemented a very strong friendship, almost to the point that I also look at Joe as being one of my brothers. I feel very close to him. He's lived a very different journey, and I really wanted him to come on today and talk about that with you guys, and hopefully you're going to learn a little bit more about him. You'll learn some more about me, and we're just here to have a great time. So I'm going to give you a little warning just ahead of time that Joe sometimes likes to swear and say some things maybe a little bit off color. So I'm going to give you a warning right now, right at the beginning of the podcast. So anyway, so without further ado, thank you for joining me, Joe. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fucking fantastic. How are you, Sean?
Good. I just wanted to give everybody a little warning, so that they're either going to be very excited to like listen and see what happens, or they're going to be like, okay, maybe I need to turn down the volume.
Put in your AirPods or tell your kids to go to bed. This is not going to be rated PG.
Exactly. All my other podcasts have been really PG, pretty good. So this might change us over to the R rating at this point.
Yes, this is not the fucking Disney Plus channel.
That's right. All right. So Joe, tell us a little bit about you. So tell us a little bit in terms of who you are, where you're from, where you're living right now, and what you do day to day. What's your occupation?
So, as Sean already said, my name is Joe Pollock. I live in Detroit, Michigan. I moved here about 5 years ago from Indianapolis, Indiana. I am a contractor here. In 2013, I left the corporate world as a quality engineer who had worked up all the way to a director of operations for a manufacturing facility. I left a very successful career and kind of went out on my own and ventured into the whole world of renovation and remodeling, which is what my parents and my grandfather had done. So I kind of came from a family of carpenters and started a renovation company and moved to Detroit about 5 years ago. And the business just kind of exploded and took off. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I manage the day-to-day craziness of running my own company and doing renovations, which I'm very passionate about. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at and what I do as of the current state.
I like that that Joseph in the Bible was also a carpenter, so it's like you're carrying all of that forward. That just popped in my head.
I am definitely not Jesus's father.
That's for sure, and I think people will realize that by the end of this podcast for sure.
Yeah.
It's funny when you talk about that. I remember that you used to do that stuff because you bring it up every now and again, that you used to do a lot of corporate stuff, quality engineering. But I always forget that because I always see you doing the interior of various gay men's homes in the Michigan area, right? So I always think of that first, and I never remember about the corporate stuff. So, yeah, so it's very different that you were kind of doing that kind of 9 to 5 job, and then you took the risk and then went out on your own, and now running a very successful contracting business where you're doing bathroom renovations, kitchen renovations, home renovations. You've pretty much done it all. You figure it out. And I think that's great, and you're in demand, so it's perfect. It also helps that you're like 6'4", blonde hair and blue eyes too, and all the gay men are in love with you. So that helps business as well too.
Yeah, it might possibly drive a little foot traffic my way.
That's right, exactly. So Joe, I'm going to tell this story. I have to tell this story. It's very important. So how did we meet? So I remember the initial encounter was over Scruff. So I remember going through Scruff and seeing the same tired 40 faces that exist on there that always sit in the same square blocks and never move anywhere. And then one day I went on and you were on there. And I remember, and I think this is important too, because it really goes with the whole theme of my channel and my podcast about positivity and being confident and self-esteem and that. And I remember seeing your picture, and it was a very good picture of you. And I just remembered, you know what, God, I don't have a chance with this person, but I'm going to message him anyway. So I messaged you, and I sent a couple messages. I know you sent them to me recently because you still had them, but I remember a couple weeks had gone by, and I had kind of forgotten that I had messaged you, and then you finally got back to me. And then I remember us chatting, and you were like, I just, got out of a relationship. I grew up in the Indianapolis area, and I moved here to Michigan for a boyfriend, and it didn't work out. And now I'm single, and now I'm looking for friends because the friends that I currently have are all of my ex's friends. So now I have to branch out alone. I thought, oh, this is great. So I remember we got talking about why I lived in Windsor, and then did you have a passport at the time? I think you did, right?
I did, yes.
Yeah,
I did.
You were one of the only Americans to have a passport. I was very shocked by that because Americans never have a passport. But I was very surprised. I remember too that you actually did have one, and we had talked about going paddleboarding because, of course, you and I are a little bit different. I'm kind of an out there kind of queen on the scene, and you're kind of burly and tossing men around in the air and all that kind of stuff. So we're a little bit different. But we had planned paddleboarding. It was something that we both had an interest in doing. And then you had made a plan to come over. It was like midweek, and you were going to come over on the Sunday. So I remember prior to that, though, I was going to a foam party in Royal Oak, Michigan at Pronto, and I was going with Fallon and Edward. And as I was messaging you, just kind of checking in on the week and about Sunday, you said you were also going to the foam party. So I remember getting there. I remember being very nervous that you were going to show up because I'm like, fuck, because when you're on social media, you can, you don't have to put your best face forward, but now you're meeting somebody in person. So I remember I was there. My friend Noah had showed up, and then he was talking to me, and he's like, oh, look, who's that guy with the blue shirt? Who's that really handsome guy? So I turn around and I look, and I'm like, oh, that's my friend Joe. And he's like, you know him? I'm like, yeah, we've been chatting and stuff. So I remember going over to you to say hi, but I was very nervous. And then I introduced you to my friends that I was with. And then for the rest of the evening, I remember you standing trapped in a corner on the back patio at Pronto with just a wall on either side of you, and you were having a very scared look on your face. So I wasn't sure if it was because the foam was moving towards you or if you were scared of the people that were there on the patio. So,
bitch, I had on white shorts at a foam party. I was terrified for my white shorts.
So I just remember spending some time by the foam party. Fallon was kind of running around in and out of it, and I would look back occasionally and you would be there. And then as the evening progressed, you were still in that corner, but then it was getting late, and I believe you guys, I can't remember who left first, but I think you left first.
I think we left first. Yeah, that
You
was the
left
first
first.
time I had went out in Detroit after my relationship. So
That's
I
why you
was
would look so scared.
yeah, I was terrified, and I did have on white shorts, and people kept coming out of the foam and wanting to touch me, and I'm like, these shorts are new and they are white. Do not touch me.
Because even though Joe is very masculine, Joe has some very princess-like qualities as well too.
Fuck yes.
So I remember you had left, and then I was like, oh, so the self for me, the self-doubt kind of kicks in, right? Because I'm thinking, oh my God, he's now met me. I'm gonna be like, we're totally not similar at all. Because I remember I was wearing some kind of like nasty pig ball cap with some kind of shirt with some kind of pattern on the front of it, something that was from Swiss Embassy. And
I'm
you
sure
were
it was gay
yeah,
and obscene as ever.
gay and obscene, and you were wearing your little shorts and your little, your blue shirt that made your eyes pop. And I'm like, oh, we're so different. So I said to you, I'll see you tomorrow. Yep, I'll see you tomorrow. So I said, okay. So I go home and I'm thinking I'm never going to hear from this person again. Anyways, and that's just my thing because it's just, I felt there was a connection with you, but I was like, I don't want to feel too much of a connection because I'm sure I'll be disappointed. And the next day I woke up and there was a text, hey, I'm on my way, just want to confirm things and whatever. And I was like, perfect. So he's coming. So we met. Joe picked me up in front of my building. We drove in his vehicle. And again, it's, it's quiet because it's first time hanging out. We went to the paddleboard place, one of my favorites here in Windsor, to Urban Surf. And we got set up on paddleboards, and it just ended up being a really, really nice day. It was beautiful. It was sunny. And we just had a great time out on the water. We came back here. I put on 2 Golden Girls episodes because I felt that they were relevant to your past life. And we'll get more into that during this podcast. But, and then you had to be home because you had to do some work with somebody, one of your friends. And you left, and I was quiet. And then I remember a couple hours later, I got a text from you that said I had amazing time, that I felt a very strong connection, and I feel like you and I are going to be friends for a very long time. And I thought, perfect, that's great. So I was so happy to hear that. And here we are, 2.5 years later, we're still friends. So it worked out well. I just think it's important to share that story because I feel like a lot of times too, people feel I'm very confident. I am confident about a lot of things, but I can get insecure around men who are my friends who are more attractive than me. So I don't know why that is, but it happens. And in the beginning of our friendship, we had some rough stuff. I remember going to a couple of in Florida and fighting with each other and those kind of things. We're both kind of strong-willed and alpha-maled, and but those are all kind of growing pains in the beginning, and we grew beyond those and learned more things about each other. And we are where we are today. So I'm very happy for that. So like I was saying, that not only are we best friends, I also feel like in many, many ways, you're kind of, I have my brothers. I love my brothers that I grew up with, but I'm also very close to you as well. And I feel like you are a brother of mine. So you're
sure.
Your family.
I was thinking about why you were talking about meeting, and it hasn't been that long ago. I think it's been over 3 years ago that we met. Yeah. We lose a year in the pandemic that just feels like it didn't exist. But it literally feels like you've just always been a part of my life. Even though we haven't seen each other for over a year now.
Yeah.
We talk every day. We have our group text that keeps going on, and it's so funny. So when I got my AirPods, it reads my text to me, and I have the text form with our friends, all of us, me, Dan, and all of the Canadian boys.
Yeah.
I have it named Canadian Cunts and US Bitches. And every time I get a text at the gym or something, she'll say, "You received a text from Canadian Cunts and US Bitches. Sean Ireland says." It always makes me laugh.
You're like, what's that queen saying to me?
But I literally just, you just have been such a part of my life
Yeah.
for the last 3 or 4 years. Like, we talk so much on a daily basis because I love my family with all my heart, but
Yeah,
we're
of
not
course.
super, super close. And we don't talk on a daily basis a lot of times. And I just really like consider you, like,
Yeah.
you've been a part of my life as long as I can remember,
Yeah.
especially my Detroit life.
Yeah,
And
that's right. Yeah.
I don't really remember a time when you weren't a part of it. It's kind of crazy.
And there's some other stuff I want to get into. I'm going to write it down. I want to talk about a little bit later about our experience going to Ann Arbor last Christmas. I think that's important because people have to realize that Joe also has a lot of patience, because at some points I can be very difficult. I can be very stubborn, and that's why they call me the stubborn unicorn.
Yes.
So yes, so Joe's been very patient, and I try to get better at things and those kind of things, but we'll get more into those stories a little bit later. So Joe, I wanted to go back to, so where does it all begin? Okay, so I love your story. Just because you've been through so many things in your life, and I don't even think that people are going to realize when we start getting into this the kind of life that you've lived and where you are now, and that you've survived, and you're here today, and you're full of life and love and fun. So guys, whoever's listening, just be ready, okay? Just be ready, because I don't think you expect the kind of things that we're going to be talking about. Joe's lived a very different life, and Joe, you are now what, 41?
29.
29. Okay, 29 in the gay world. 29.
29 again.
Again.
I turned 42 in January.
42. That's what it was. Yes, 42. And yeah, because I'll be turning 45, and I'm 3 years older than you. But yeah, so guys, listen to this story, and I'm sure you're going to be at the end. You're just going to catch your breath and be like, wow, because you don't even know what's coming. Okay. So, Joe, you're growing up in a small town just outside of Indianapolis. And again, Joe, I will say this, you are comfortable, or I speak about whatever you're comfortable with. Okay. I'm not going to push you into speaking about anything, but I just, this can go on the history books one day, as well. And I just feel it's important that everyone gets to hear your story, and they get to know who you are and where you've come from. So whatever you feel comfortable talking about with, just go with it. So let's just start with growing up, being young.
Well, I think, first of all, you talking about what I'm comfortable talking about. I think for me, the biggest part of my journey, whether it's coming out, to a religious family, and all my friends were religious, or even taking that further to my alcoholism, my HIV status, it's the biggest part of my journey has been loving myself enough to be transparent.
Right.
Recovery taught me that people are only as sick as their secrets. And I try my best on a daily basis, even though I fail at it a lot of times. I try my best on a daily basis to live my life as transparently as possible. And that's kind of been my ultimate goal. Some days I do great, some days I fail.
Yeah.
So I would say, going into this, I kind of went into this, and I told you this prior to us actually recording this. I'm really comfortable talking about whatever. My life is my journey, it's my story, and it is what it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
So
I know that you grew up in a very, very strict, like, I know there's different forms of the Pentecostal faith, but yours was very strict.
yes. So I grew up in what they would call Pentecostal Holiness is the
Okay.
term.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of, like, there's no television. We weren't allowed to listen to secular music. Um, the women had to wear really long skirts to the floor. The women were not allowed to cut their hair. There was no jewelry, no makeup. The men had to wear long pants. I had to wear long sleeves.
Even swimming,
Even
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
even when we would swim, we were not allowed to quote unquote what they called mix bathe. So the men and women weren't allowed to swim together, because that was considered indecent. But even when just the men swam with just the men, we still had to wear like long pants and long sleeve shirts to cover our bodies so that, there wouldn't be any indecency.
Right. Indecency.
So crazy.
And little did they know 41 years later or 42 years later where that was going to end up.
Yeah, there ain't much decency left now.
That's right. So you had, did you have a good relationship with your parents?
So, no.
Yeah.
I was raised by a Pentecostal preacher for a father who
Okay.
was also a drug addict, alcoholic, very, very, very abusive, um, in a lot of different ways, emotionally, mentally, physically, sexually, just a very abusive person. And we didn't really have a home because he was what we would call in the faith an evangelist. So we just went from church to church holding meetings, and we lived out of a camper that we pulled behind a truck. So I didn't have a lot of friends other than just my sister, and we literally moved every 7 days to another, state, another city, another whatever, and we would hold another revival, was what the church called them. So it was a lot of moving and a lot of chaos and a lot of craziness, which led into other aspects of my life later, I'm sure. But yeah, I had a really rocky relationship. To fast forward till now, I haven't spoken to my father in probably 5 or 6 years, I'm guessing, when the last time we had a conversation. There's forgiveness, there's healing, there's therapy. I wish him well. He's just a very toxic person, and he doesn't bring anything but pain and heartache into my life. And I made the decision 5 or 6 years ago that if I was going to be better and get better, I had to cut those ties. So
Yeah.
I don't have any relationship with my father whatsoever, although I do ultimately wish him well, and I wish him happiness, and I wish him peace, because he's a very hurting, very troubled
Yeah.
individual. My mother and I, we have been able to repair our relationship a lot. I am very close to my mother. I love my mother. Um, she really struggles with my lifestyle, but she chooses to love me. And we've kind of reached a point where there's just a truce, I think is the right word. I'm not going to attack your crazy cult, and you're going to attack me for being one of the crazy gays. So we kind of have a peace sign up, and we've built a pretty decent relationship, between each other. And through my success, I've been able to give back to her because she suffered a lot in that abusive relationship as well. And so we've become good friends. I bought her a new stove that was actually delivered today, so I'm son of the month as officially as of today.
Yeah, and that's good. Going back to that, I know that some of your mom's issues are you and your scantily clad Speedo pictures that are sprawled all over Facebook.
Yeah, the very first time I went on vacation with you and wore a Speedo for the first time, she replied to the picture, "I raised you better."
That's right. That's right. But it's funny though, because I like that you say that, because in the beginning when I knew you, your relationship with your mother was a little bit strained, and over these 3 years, I just like the fact that you can have a relationship with your mother and you can agree to disagree. She doesn't necessarily agree with your lifestyle, but you're her son and she wants to have a life with you, and you don't necessarily agree with her lifestyle, and that's it. So you've agreed to disagree. Mom, this is where I am in my life, and this is where you are, and we have to compromise if we want to have have a mother and well, I was going to say daughter, but a mother and son relationship, right?
Mother-daughter works.
Mother-daughter relationship. But if people don't know, though, as well, and we'll get back to the other stuff, but I want to throw in these things as I remember that Joe also likes to aggravate when he goes home to visit. So his sister is in the faith, and so is his niece. And Joe thought it would be really funny last Christmas. I think it was Christmas. So his niece is opening up her Christmas gift, and there is a pair of high heel shoes in it.
They weren't. First of all, she was 12, about to turn 13, And they weren't just heels; they were stripper heels.
They were stripper heels. So there was a video that was circulating of this, and there was a lot of very shocked faces when this box and shoes were lifted out of it. And of course, all you hear is Joe laughing. So you like to, it's not that you antagonize, you're trying to have a little bit of fun by exposing them through to some of these things as well. Right?
Yeah. And I've learned to laugh at my calamities. That's the only way it's the only way I've been able to get through life without just absolutely losing my mind, is I make a joke out of everything. And
and it's creative, guys. It really is. I mean, when I saw this video, I'm like, okay, what is going to be in this box? So we're all sitting right with bated breath. We're watching the video, and the niece is opening it up, and then when she opens it, she lifts up these heels, and they're kind of like, just everybody just looked at each other. So it was such a great video. I loved it. But it was fun, and and obviously the heels got returned, and then something else was purchased that she was able to wear and enjoy. So, so your childhood, you grow up in the Pentecostal faith. It's very strict, no TV. Then along the way, you meet somebody, right? So you're going to live. Now, at this point, are you feeling any homosexual tendencies at all?
So I knew I was gay from the time I was like 4 or 5, maybe even younger. I was attracted to men from, as long as I can remember. My memories are of me being attracted to men of some sort. I had no idea what it meant when I was probably, I don't know, 6 or 7. There was a sexual encounter with a much older kid in the church.
Ooh, taboo.
Yeah, and it wasn't, I mean, I guess officially you would use the word rape, but I don't know. I was young, but I also was super curious and super attracted and all those things, but whatever.
And just, before you go for it, and that's kind of like, and I feel, somebody was older and used their power and all that, but in some ways it's very different for gay guys too, because sometimes, they can be perceived that way, but sometimes when we're curious.
Yeah, right? I'm curious and I'm attracted to men. I have no friends, and there's this very attractive 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid
How old are you?
I was probably 6 or 7.
6 or 7, okay.
So I was really young. I mean, old enough that it shouldn't have happened.
Right. Yeah.
By
a teenager.
By all standards. But I can't say, like, looking back on it, it was very traumatizing just because I knew it was taboo and I knew it was wrong. And, at that point, every little wrong thing you did, the devil was going to, like, come up and possess your soul and drag you to hell. So that was traumatizing. But looking back on it, it was kind of, but anyway, he told me I couldn't tell anybody because they would think I was a homosexual. And that was the first time I had ever heard the word, and I didn't know what that meant. So I was smart enough to not ask what that meant, because I didn't want people to know, like, well, how do you know that word? So that was when I first got introduced to it. And then later learning, like, that's when men like men. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm one of those. And from that point, as soon as I made the connection at a pretty young age, probably 9, 10 years old, I just knew my lifelong goal and ambition was to die and no one know that I was one of those. As long as I died, people not knowing I was one of those people, I was good to go. Okay.
So then you meet Kim, right?
So I met my ex-wife, Kim. We were 17, I think, 16, 17 when we got together, started dating. We were both in the church. Her family was more well off, and she was very beautiful and very popular at school. And I was none of those things.
You show me your high school picture. You're definitely someone, those who have not seen it that are listening, Joe is definitely someone who definitely grew into his looks. Yeah, definitely.
Time has been good to me. But so I met Kim, and Kim and I just hit it off, and we got married really young. And at first I thought, well, I had never had sex with anyone as an adult. And so, I was dealing with these gay homosexual tendencies, but I thought if I just got married and was able to have sex because premarital sex was a sin, that the feelings would go away. And then we got married and our sex life wasn't the greatest because we didn't know how to do it, and for lack of a better term, and there was no experience on either one of us. And so we were just trying to figure it out together, and there was nobody to talk to because it was so taboo. But anyway, long story short, it didn't go away. And after 8 years of marriage, I finally just told her, like, hey, I'm gay. And she was devastated. To fast forward to now, she's one of my best friends in the whole wide world. We are literally brother and sister. We talk almost on a daily basis. And as far as family is concerned, she is my family. I love her and adore her. And she knows everything about me. I know everything about her. And it really ended up working out in the long run, but there was definitely a lot of bumps to get there.
Yeah, and she is. And I got to meet her last year, just before the pandemic. And I had a great time with her. I adore her. She, even to the point that she invited me to come out for a solo trip to visit her in Atlanta, which I had booked for last May. But of course, because of the pandemic, we had to cancel. So someday when I can travel in 2027, I'll be excited to be able to go visit her again. But yeah, she is an amazing human being. And everybody, when we met her at the night you had a little get together at your house, everybody just had a fantastic time with her. And, to the point that we loved, I will always remember we played adult charades and she knew what none of those things were.
Yeah. Yeah. She's left the church, and, she's not Holiness Pentecostal anymore, although she does identify as a Christian. But yeah, she's still a little naive when she comes to a lot of things. Also, you was talking about you're going to go visit her in Atlanta. Officially, as of this past weekend, she moved to Winchester, Virginia, which is the middle of nowhere. And she called me. She called me yesterday, and she was like, she said she has a really good job there, and she'll settle, but she called me and she said, have you watched Schitt's Creek? And I was like, well, yeah, actually I just started watching it. She said, I'm fucking living that life in this city. I have no idea. She's like, I don't consider myself like a fashionista or anything, but she was like, I was the only person in the store not wearing camo. So
I love it. I'm glad she discovered that. Yeah.
She has moved officially to like middle of nowhere in bumfuck, Virginia.
I guess I'm going to visit her, but I feel like she'll be closer than I can drive there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. We'll meet in Columbus because it's 3 hours for me to Columbus and 3 hours from her to Columbus. So.
Oh, she's not that far. Okay, so now I could just drive and visit her because I would love to go and just spend a weekend with her, just because she's an important person in your life, and I want to just kind of share that time with her because I remember when I met her. We had a great time. She pulled me aside in the evening and she said, I really love what you've brought to Joe's life. He talks about you a lot. And because of that, you're someone that's very important to me. And I would love for you to come. You don't have to bring Joe or anything. We could just, she said, I'm a boring old Christian, but if you want to come and just hang out with me, I said, that's fine. I said, I'd love to. I don't care. I love people for everything. So her and I would get along well.
She's great.
So you've decided that it's not going to work. You're going to end the marriage, and then so you and Kim divorce, and then where do you go from there? What happened?
So from there, I moved to Indianapolis. I met a guy that was at that time. Well, I guess he still is, but at that time I was 26 and he was 40.
Okay.
And so 14 years older than me, which we joke. He and I are still good friends now. We dated for 2 years, but now I'm the age that he was when I met him. And he's 54, 55. So we joke now about him being old and me being the age that he was. So I met Brett, is his name, and he and I had a interesting 2-year relationship. And he was definitely the like first love of my life kind of thing. And that was, a journey within itself. But moved to Indianapolis, and that's kind of when I started. I quit my job as an engineer and worked in a gay bar as a bartender for a couple years. And then when I returned back to my engineering degree roots, I became a production manager. I moved to Chicago for a couple years. So he and I dated. Okay. I lived in Indianapolis for 2 years. Then I moved to Chicago for 2 years. And that's when I really when I met him, I thought, like it was going to be just like Kim and I, and we were going to be together forever. And we were never going to have sex with anyone else but each other, and we were going to be monogamously in love forever and ever, amen. And then when that didn't work out and he said, I absolutely cannot date you, you're a mess, I moved to Chicago, and I, within 2 years, pretty much went through the entire city of Chicago.
Right. Okay. I mean, and
Yep.
because part of that is because you didn't get that opportunity to sow your oats, right? Because people have to remember that, and more so, I guess, with gay men is that we like to have sex. And it sometimes, and it's not even about just enjoying sex. Some of my best friends in the world, or people I've met through my life, I've met because we had a hookup. So sometimes you meet your friends that way too. So
Yeah,
it's not,
absolutely.
I don't want people to always think that it's just gay men are running around, they just want to have sex all the time. Not to say that that's not happening, but straight men do it too. But sometimes it's been a way for us to kind of bond with someone, and we formed a friendship out of it. So but at some point, where were you in Kokomo? Where between there were you in Kokomo?
So
before?
when I say that I was living in Indianapolis, but I was managing a gay bar in Kokomo.
In Kokomo, okay.
And
'Cause
working at a gay bar in Kokomo, yes.
And what I love about that story is that while you were in Kokomo, my ex, his sister lived in Peru, which is right near Kokomo, and I used to go shopping in there all the time, and then had wanted to go to that gay bar. And if I had, I would have met you then, or at least seen you, because you were working at that same time. So very weird. Sure. We were kind of very close at that time, but had never had met. It's weird. It's weird how things
crazy,
work out.
yeah.
It's crazy. I would have, at least if I had ever gone in there, I would have seen you there because we figured out the timeline from that. So you're now living in Chicago, and then when is the heavy partying, the drinking, all that? Because now you've come from growing up where you didn't drink any alcohol whatsoever, right? It's not even on the grid, nothing. You've never had a sip of anything.
So in Chicago is kind of when my alcoholism started really showing itself. I will say I drank alcoholically kind of from the beginning. As soon as I started drinking, I liked a lot of it. And one was just boring and 100 was great. So I tend to drink. I tend to drink alcoholically even from the beginning. But in Chicago is kind of where I didn't have any restraints, and I was making really good money, so I had the money to party. And that's when I was going to work. I would start my shift at 5 a.m. and a lot of the days I would drive straight from the bars to open the factory at 5 a.m. It was really crazy. I have no idea. It was the grace of God that I didn't really get into a lot of trouble up there. But then when I moved back to Indianapolis after those 2 years, I dated a guy I kind of settled into a relationship. And I think that kind of held my alcoholism back a little bit. And then it was after that relationship, I kind of went wild again. And that's when the real calamity of my alcoholism started.
Right. And then it kind of it spirals, right? So like you're saying, you're partying, you're going right from the bar to work. I'm sure there's nights of blacking out. So were you drinking pretty much every day?
So initially I just drank when I partied, but I got my first DUI in 2010. And that's when I was like, I didn't think I had a problem. I just thought I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I needed to be careful. Then by 2013, January 21st, I think it was like the 21st, right around my birthday. No, January 31st, right after my birthday, of 2013, I got my second DUI. Blew a .46 and had no recollection of the arrest. Woke up in a drunk tank, had been arrested the second time. And that's when I checked myself into rehab.
Okay.
And kind of started the process of slowly but surely getting sober. It was a decade of that journey of learning to live a sober life. I had a lot of relapses. But I just continuously kept moving up until I got to the point where I was really ready to live a sober life. And that's been a long journey for me.
I know. And so part of it for me, I remember when we were first friends, So for me, I mean, I've talked about it myself. I've been sober now, going on 19 years now. This would be heading into my 19th year. And because, for me, I was more of a binge drinker. So I wouldn't drink through the week. And then when the weekends would hit, all I could think about was drink, drink, drink. And then I'd black out and I'd say a lot of things to people. And then you spend the next day kind of apologizing for things that you apparently did but don't remember. And after a while, I just felt that it just couldn't control my life anymore. It was becoming very self-destructive. And I think a lot of it was because I was so insecure as a person, and the alcohol just gave me the security. So I quit it. But unlike what you had to go through, I was able to just quit it. I woke up one day and I was done, right? I was very fortunate, whereas you've had a rough road. And when the beginning of our friendship, I remember the very first time you had fallen off the wagon, because at this point I didn't really know that you had. I knew that you drank before, but I felt that at that point I was under the impression that you were recovered from it. And I remember the first time you kind of disappeared for about a week. Like, we would message every day, and then I didn't hear from you. And I was like, oh, that's weird. This is 3 days. So now I'm concerned. What happened? I'm thinking, did I say anything? Did I do something wrong or whatever? And then finally after a week or so, you kind of bounce back here and say, hey, hey, Bubba, I fell off the wagon or whatever. That happens sometimes. And I was like, oh, okay. So this was kind of my first encounter, and especially with someone, because though I had a drinking problem myself, I sometimes suspect that people I've known in my life probably should cut back on the alcohol, but I never really had someone that would go to the extreme that you would do, right?
Yeah.
Whereas you would be drinking solidly for a week.
Yeah. So I can, after 2013, my relapses, at that point, I accepted the fact that I was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And I started trying to be sober, and by the end of my drinking career, as we say in AA, I was down to like maybe once a year, sometimes twice a year, where I would do about a 3-day bender, and then I would be so sick and
Right.
so it would take me about 3 or 4 days to come out of it. But physically, all my body could handle was about 3 days of like intense, crazy.
Because you're old now. Because you're old.
Yeah.
Now.
Bitch,
Yeah.
I'm old as hell. But yeah, so I was really still able to kind of build my life, as far as my career and my business and things like that, because it was such small increments that I would drink. It wasn't like Chicago where I was just drunk for 2 years straight. But I was really kind of still doing better. But it wasn't until about right around a year and a half ago, that my then sponsor said, I really think you should try therapy. And I was like, me? Why do I need therapy?
I thought that too, because I don't feel that you wrestled with a lot of your stuff that you went through as a kid, right? And I think that there's a root of stuff, right?
Yeah. So over the last 17 months now, I've literally went to see a therapist every single Friday for 17 months. And sometimes I call her and I'm like, hey, I should probably see you on a Tuesday. Like I just had therapy right before I got on here with you, and it's obviously not Friday. So I just felt like I needed to talk about some things. And fortunately, my business has been successful enough that I'm able to do that. I know not everybody has that luxury, but I'm really fortunate. But through therapy and working through things, I was able to kind of discover the reasons that I drank. And I've always known that I drank to escape, but I really didn't know what I was escaping from. I just knew that there was a lot of pain that I was unable to deal with. But through 17 months of intense therapy and working through some of those issues, I've really kind of reached a point in my life where, as of right now, I can't say forever, but as of right now, I don't feel the need to put alcohol or drugs in my body, and it's really kind of cool. And my life has just kind of skyrocketed.
Right. So I know I want to say this too, that because I love you so much, I'm so proud of you. I remember the day that you texted me to say that you had received your 1-year chip, your 12-month chips, and that was the first time in your life you had achieved a solid 12 months. And I was like, wow. Right? As if you won $1 million. I'm thinking, this is fantastic. I'm so happy. And then just recently now, do I want to say, was it your 16th month, your 17th month?
Yeah, we're at 17 months now. Yeah.
Which is fantastic. First time in your life to even make the year, and you're 17 months. And I just want to say, that I'm so proud of you for doing that. You have come a long way. And just even in the short amount of time that we've known each other. And I would like to say that I think that there's the therapy, definitely. I think it's also because you got rid of kind of the trouble in your life as well, too, right? You also had to realize that some of the people you were hanging around with or dating were also not conducive to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. One of the things I learned through therapy is that we attract like people of like energy.
Mm-hmm.
So when your energy is chaotic, you attract chaotic people. And I kept trying to figure out why I was, having patterns in my life, why was the same cycles happening over and over. I would why was I was successful in business, but I was always like sabotaging myself and
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh,
and
yes.
ending back up at ground zero over and over again. And I couldn't figure out why those were happening. And I realized like, there were so many things of like really deep subconscious work and programming over the years being a gay little boy in a Christian church where you were told you were an abomination and you were disgusting and you were gross and you were vile and you were, God hated you. And so you subconsciously
Right.
believed, even though you're an out proud gay man, you subconsciously still, that little boy believed that he was a piece of shit who did not deserve happiness and God hated him.
Yeah.
And so to have to go in and find that little boy and do the work on that little boy and then be able to function as an adult and not let that little boy sabotage every time there was some success because I thought I didn't deserve it because I was told I was a piece of shit my whole life.
Yeah. And that's really the first time, and that's the first time I've heard you tell me that. So that's amazing that you've realized.
Mhm.
I'm so happy for you, Joe, that you've done this. And, unfortunately, I haven't get a chance to see you for the last year because almost in a few weeks from now, 2 weeks from now, a year ago, we were in Toronto
Mhm.
having a great time,
Yeah.
kind of looking at people wearing masks, wondering what the hell was going on, fighting with people in hotel rooms and all the crazy things on the trip. And
Yeah.
and then we're still a year later, we're still trying to figure this out, and we can't get across the border to see each other and all that kind of stuff. It just sucks. So I feel like in some ways I'm sad because I feel like you've done very, very well and I've missed out on some of those great opportunities. But I also have to remember that I've also been a part of it too because you shared it all along the way with us as well.
Yeah, via text and everything else.
Yeah.
We this year has been the biggest year of growth I've ever
Right.
experienced as a human. And it has felt weird that I literally feel like where we left off a year ago when I was just a few months sober.
Hmm.
And at that point I didn't know if it was going to be different. Will this time be any
Right.
different than the others, or will I go 7, 8 months and fall off the wagon for 3 days like I always do? I didn't know. But almost like this magical journey of 2020 for me, it has been weird that you weren't kind of there and
I know.
physically there for a part of it. And it's going to be interesting for me when they do open up the border and you come into my life. My life is so drastically different. It's
I
going to be
know.
kind of a shock for you, I think, to see me. There's so many people in my life who have said, like my friend Janice, who has kind of
Yeah,
been a huge support system for me through this.
absolutely.
She even told me a few months ago. She said it's just so different being friends with you as a healthy individual,
Hmm.
as a healthy person. And I mean, she's like, the way you give back and the way that you're so much more a part of the friendship. And I really have been able to give back to my mom. I've been able to give
Yep.
back to Janice. I've been able to give back to my friends in recovery because for so long I was just surviving and I was taking and taking and taking because I was always, struggling so much on so many levels. And so I'm really excited for the border to open back up and us to kind of experience this whole friendship again with me as a more like stable, healthy person.
I might find you too boring.
Bitch, there is nothing about my life that's boring.
Yeah, because I want to say some things too. Like in this last year, and that's the thing, I've talked about this with people before. COVID has been bad for some people, but for other people too, it's been a great time to reflect. I feel like COVID in this case worked in your favor. You needed it.
I did 100%.
Absolutely. And I can't believe how much you've had so much maturity and so much growth in the last year. I've seen where you've changed. And yeah, I'm just so excited because I want to give you a big hug as the first time I see you, and then make sure that the princess room is still intact.
Well, the princess room is not intact at the moment, but it will be by the time you get there.
Yeah, so people don't know that I have to tell this story. Okay, this is a funny story, and then we're gonna go back a little bit. And then we'll continue on with the rest of it. But I have to tell this story because I tell it to other people, but I've never really told it to you. And we came back to the night that you and I were in Fort Lauderdale, and we took our little trip to the one of the gay establishments, the bathhouse. And there was some, I had lost track of you.
Just in case this gets posted and my mom hears this, the gay bathhouse is where gay people go to shower and get really clean.
Exactly.
They get really clean there.
We had been dancing all night, and we needed to go
we just wanted to go scrub and get really clean.
That's right. Exactly.
Okay, go ahead with your story.
Okay. So there was an incident where I had lost track of Joe, and then I didn't know what was happening, and I was getting ready to leave, and then Joe came out and said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Well, I've called an Uber," and he said, "Well, I'm ready to go, bitch, so cancel the Uber, we'll go together." So when we get in the car, this is way back. This is like our first trip together too. And we're still trying to feel each other out, feel the ground, who's the alpha, who's this, who's that. And I remember the specific the context where Joe had said to me, I know that Dave and I know that Fallon and Eddie, they roll out the red carpet for you, but I'm not going to be the type of friend that does that. And yet, why I love this story so much is that every home that you've moved into while you've been here, there's always a princess room set up for me. So though it's not a red carpet, there is a unicorn bust hanging on the wall.
Yes.
There's special sheets on the bed, and there's always these little touches so that when I can stay at your place, it's a sense of a home for me. So I always think back to that story. I laugh. I was telling that not too long ago the other day to some friends here. Because I remember that so specifically. I won't roll out the red carpet, but I'll make sure that there's a princess room.
Yes, I will make sure you have a place to sleep where you're surrounded by unicorns, but I will not let you control every aspect of our trips. Hell no.
I love that story. It's such a great story. So another thing too, so I haven't had much opportunity, and because we're so close, I feel like, so Dan is your boyfriend, your partner. You guys live together. I consider Dan a wonderful. We adore Dan. Myself, Edward, Nick, all the Canadian people. We love Dan. Dan was kind of a play friend initially for you. And
just in case my mom is watching, that means that we would play toys together in the sandbox.
Exactly. Just to clarify that, exactly. Just in case mom is listening. Yeah. So, and then it was like, I got it. So, we initially had met Dan at Snowball over in Motor City.
Yes.
So Dan had been there, and he brought his friend, and then Kim was in town, and that's when I met her, and then some of my coworkers from American Eagle who are wasted out of their mind. And was Michelle there? Yes, Michelle, my friend Michelle.
Yes, Michelle was there.
Out of her mind, having a few drinks, running around with this glowing penis that she was dancing around on the dance floor with. But we had a great night. And, it was hard to connect with Dan, too, because we didn't really know him, and he had a lot of people around. But then we invited him to go to Toronto for my birthday. And we just had a great time. I feel right away there was a connection with Dan, at least on my part, and, maybe Eddie and Nick, but also for you guys, for you and Dan, and it really blossomed into, I mean, you guys were like the lesbian couple, right? Because the first date you went for dinner and the second date you rented a U-Haul. So it's
well, just to be clear, we never went on a first date.
That's right.
Our very first date, COVID happened and they shut restaurants down, and I don't think we've still been on a date yet.
Yeah.
But no, so like I met Dan. Dan and I were just hookup buddies. That was it. We didn't hang out outside of that. And then he started kind of coming around, and then he quit his job and wanted to go to school and work part-time, and I needed help. And I said, well, why don't you come work for me? I could use some help. And the joke between us, because he asked me one day, I have no idea when this was, but a few months ago, he was like, when did you know you loved me? And I was like, when I saw you crawling around on your hands and knees, grouting a tile floor. I was like, yeah, I'm going to keep this one. But yeah, so we started dating. January 26th was our 1-year anniversary. And like, COVID happened immediately. Mm-hmm. His roommate had a father with stage 4 lung cancer. So she was like, if you're going to work in the outside world, like, you can't stay here. You can't be here. So I told him, I said, well, let's stay here. We'll quarantine together and see what happens. And yeah, she just never left. It's like you feed a cat on the porch, and she just keeps coming back for more food. So coming
back. But we love Dan, and that's why I'm also excited to, when the border opens, that we can go over and spend time with you guys, because you have a beautiful backyard that you guys put together with a hot tub and seating and a patio and a barbecue and all those things that I don't get to do necessarily on this side. So I am excited, and just getting to know and see your guys' relationship, because I've only seen it through pictures and through our text messages, right?
Yeah, it's been a crazy year, because we literally got forced into like so much so fast. Mm-hmm. But I kind of like you, I've known Dan now for, it was in October of 19 when I met him. I can't imagine my life without him. I can't remember a time when he wasn't a part of my life. He's just so integrated into every aspect of my life.
And out of all the people you dated since I've known you, Dan was the only one that was ever interested in who your other friends are. So the other guys that you dated were very into you, didn't really care that we were all kind of floating around as your friends. And that's why I really, really like Dan, because Dan would speak to us as if we were people and we were someone who was very important in your life. And I think very highly of him for that. And I love him for that. And I also love that he lets me call him Danny, even though he doesn't really like that name.
Yeah. One thing interesting too, which you kind of haven't, over there, you haven't got to be as much a part of this journey. But when we all went to Toronto together, so March 8th was the night that we all went to the Eagle. Mm-hmm. And that's the night that Nikki went into the little back room there. But that's all we'll say about that, because that's another podcast. We don't want her stomping around. So, but that night was the very last night that Dan had a drink of alcohol. He said, if you're going to be sober, I'm going to be sober with you. And from that point on, he's not a big drinker anyway, but from that point on, as a way of support. So coming up next week is his 1-year sobriety mark as well. So,
and I think that's great, because you know what? And I hope that you've realized that when I first quit drinking, I was like, oh my God, what's my life going to be like? Especially going out socially, what's it going to be like? But I feel that, and even like now that, we'll hopefully get together again to connect and go dancing and tease and make fun of people as we normally do. But even when you weren't dealing with falling off the wagon or whatever, we had a lot of fun as sober people. I love it, because you watch all of the people wasted around us, and we just remember specifically every of the evening. And so, if you're contemplating, anybody listening to this, and you're contemplating giving up drinking, and whether you're going to do it for 6 months or you want to do it for a lifetime, or you're going to do it like Dan did to support a spouse who no longer drinks, I think that's great. And life will only be that much more fun. You don't need alcohol to have fun. You just need to have fun people in your life.
Yeah. One thing I will say about my drinking, drinking stopped being fun for me many, many years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So going out and dancing and going to parties where there's, circuit parties, whatever it is that we do together, that's never a temptation for me because I don't associate drinking with fun. Drinking for me was a very dark, very, very dark, lonely place that I went to. And that's something that, like, I've really had to work through. Why do I want to go to that dark place? I'm fine at a party. I'm fine at a circuit party. I'm fine on a cruise ship. I'm fine anywhere. It's when I'm alone that I go to that dark place. And that's one thing that, I'm really grateful that I do have friends like you who I can go out and I'm not the only one, dancing sober or whatever. And we do, like, I got in trouble. I went out with Sean one time to Minjo's before the pandemic hit. And I literally got in trouble with a LGBTQ AA group because they were like, you were there and you were wasted. We saw you on the dance floor and nobody acts like that sober. And I'm like, bitch, I have friends to prove that I was sober that night. They were like, you didn't have a shirt on. You were like humping on people. I'm like, no, that's me sober. I'm that crazy.
That's right. That's right. It's because we draw that out in each other. We don't need alcohol to do that. So exactly. I know, I think I remember you had said something like that. Yeah. And even like for me, my friends that I hang out with now are very respectful of that too. Though they'll have a drink or two, that's it when they go out. I don't have friends that I go out that they're a hot mess and I'm picking up off the floor and all that kind of stuff. So for Dan to give that up for you, Dan's a romantic anyways. We know that, Dan's very madly in love with you.
She's a mess.
She's a mess because she's so googly eyed and all this stuff. But I think that's awesome. I'm going to send him a message about that
it's been awesome. Really cool. And I think he knows this. I'm sure he'll listen to this podcast, but I'm really grateful for the role he's played in my life.
Yeah.
As far as my sobriety, he's been very supportive, and that has meant the world to me.
Yeah, he's a really great guy. You are very, very, very lucky to have him. And of course, any relationship has issues as well. I'm sure it's not all, roses along the way, but
nope.
No, but you guys make a really, really good couple. My favorite is that Dan is only 3 feet 10 inches tall, and Joe is 6'4". In heels. So I love the difference in height, and I love the photos that come from that height difference. It's so funny. I love it. Okay. So then we're moving into something now. And I remember, because I remember being part of this, I remember that it was last January. I remember messaging you, and I have a bad habit of doing this, and I have to be very careful because I did this to another friend before too, but I have to remember that when I don't hear from people, I shouldn't text them after a few days and say, girl, are you dead? Because the response that comes back is, yes, I almost died. So that happened to another one of my friends. So I gotta be like, don't text people that. So I text that to you, and you were like, girl, oh my God, I've had the flu. I am so sick. I have never been this sick. I have no energy. I have anything. And I'm thinking, well, it's January, flu's going around. And Kim had been sick the week before she had come up to visit. So you had suspected that maybe you had picked something up, maybe from her, kind of a trail. And then, as the pandemic rolled around, I remember we were kind of talking, and I want to say we were talking in April, and we were figuring that you must have had COVID.
Yeah, I'm totally convinced it was COVID. I mean, I had all of the symptoms: respiratory, fatigue, depression, fever. It was everything. And, by the time it rolled around and we all realized what it was and all those things, I mean, right now they're saying the antibodies last, 3 or 4 months. By the time I realized I got tested for the antibodies, but it had been 7-8 months at that point. So
yeah, exactly. So you couldn't trace it at that point. So then what happened? So, you're feeling fine again now, right? Things are normal, but now you've gone for random, because you and Dan are together and you are exploring sexuality and stuff like that, and you want to go get tested, right? Just so you have a clean bill of health. So you go get tested, and then I remember I get a call. So he's like, hey, Bubba, I got to tell you something. And I'm like, oh, fuck. If him and Dan fucking broke up, I'm going to lose my fucking mind. I barely even got to meet the guy, and they're freaking broke up. Because that's what in the past, that's what it had been, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no. She's all right. She's still hanging around here. Still feeding the cat. But then you had told me that you had had a diagnosis, a new diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So June 14th, 2020, the day that I will never forget, I found out that I was HIV positive. And that was, of all the things I faced in 2020, that was probably the most challenging. Um, I have always been super like HIV
Yep,
friendly and aware.
absolutely. We talked
Most
about
of
it.
my
Yep,
exes were HIV positive while I was negative.
yep,
I understood the whole process. So I was, but when it happens to you, it's very different. Um, I there was a moment where I was like, life is over as I now know it. There's going to be this stigma. Everybody's going to, you know, treat me different. I'm never going to have sex again. Um, and it was really scary.
yep.
And honestly, like, I guess the one thing that I've told people was it was almost a God moment because I was so upset, but I instantly just felt this like external peace that came over me that everything was going to be okay. And I'm really fortunate. I take Dovato, and
Yep.
I have a very, very, very healthy immune system. So they said that even though they think I'd had it for a second, it really didn't do a lot to my system, and I literally am able to take one pill a day, and my life is completely normal
Yeah.
in every single aspect.
Well, and that's the thing. And I mean, I remember it more so than you because, I remember in 1990 to 1993, you would have been involved in the church. You're probably not hearing too much about it. But, as a gay man, I was out at that time. And, people died, were dying in
Oh
1992
yeah.
of HIV. I mean, it was still a death sentence. And now, now I have you and I have a couple of the friends that are HIV positive, and now it's a lifestyle now. It's more of a chronic condition. You can take medication for it. In my case, I take PrEP, which protects me from contracting HIV. But life goes on. And one thing that I remember when you had told me, I was upset on the phone. I was a little upset later on in the evening. I cried a little bit by myself just because I was just like, oh, he's doing so well, and then this comes along. And then I said to myself, you know what? It doesn't change who Joe is, and it's not it's an inconvenience nowadays. It's not a death sentence, so it's not like you're going to die. Okay, I have HIV. One thing that I like about it, and what I feel is very important, and going back to what you just said, is that there's so much stigma with HIV. People who have HIV are not dirty. People who have HIV who have caught it and are diagnosed and are treated are a lot safer to sleep with because you know that they have HIV. Whereas when you
Yep.
sleep with a stranger, you don't know what their status is.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm confident I know where I contracted it. Um, it was someone who had told me they were negative when they
Right.
weren't.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they knew or not at that time, I don't know. I have access to that person to have that conversation, but have chosen not to for
Yep.
whatever
And they
reason.
obviously were not on treatment because if
Yeah, they were
on
not
treatment.
on treatment and things like that. But the one thing I have learned is PrEP is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's done wonders for the the community because it does protect you for people who don't know. But once I became HIV positive or found out that I was HIV positive and then became undetectable,
Yep.
I was able to educate myself a lot more on the U equals U.
Yeah. U equals U. And for those that don't know, what does U equals U stand for?
U equals U, undetectable equals untransmittable. If a person is undetectable and their HIV viral load is that low, it is impossible for them to pass the virus to you through sexual intercourse. So if you know someone who is HIV positive but undetectable and they really keep up with their medication
Right.
and they keep up with their status and they have been tested and it's much safer even if you're not on PrEP. It's much safer to have sex with someone who is HIV positive and undetectable than it is to someone who does not know their status. Because
Exactly.
someone who truly does not know their status is how people like me become infected.
Yep. And that's why testing is very important. And that's why getting tested early is good, because in your case, you were tested early enough that you didn't have the damage.
Yeah.
to
Within
your
2 weeks,
body. Right.
within 2 weeks of getting on Dovato, I was undetectable. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And it made me a little bit sleepy at first, and I've struggled a little bit with weight gain.
Girl.
Based on that. I mean, it definitely changed my metabolism a little bit, but it's the weight gain that has come from Dovato is not nearly as bad as the weight gain that's come from McDonald's. So let's
I
be
think
real.
what's going to happen, and it goes back to a Golden Girls episode. I think when I do come and visit you, you're going to wear a robe, and then you're going to open it up, and you're going to be wearing a Speedo, and you're going to say, "Girl, do you think I can still pull this off?" And I'm going to say, right now, I don't think you could even cut it off.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's what I'm going to say to you. Yes. But it's like, yes. And I feel like, and you and I have talked about this before, that you are very open about discussing with it, discussing your HIV status, because there's no reason for people to be shamed or feel shamed that they have HIV. It's no, to me, I look at it, it's no different than somebody who has diabetes. It's somebody who has heart disease. We talk very openly about that, but when it comes to HIV, and that's because there's so much stigma. But unless we start talking more about it, and people who have HIV start talking about it as if it's fine that I have HIV, and I just want you to know, we're never going to break.
When I first found out that I was HIV positive, my first reaction was, I don't want anyone to know. I will only tell people if I'm going to sleep with them. I don't want them to know. And when we first started recording this podcast, I said, like, it's been such a journey for me to live my life transparently. And I immediately was faced with that decision. Do I continue to live my life transparently like I have with my addiction and coming out and all those things? Now that I'm HIV positive, do I continue to live my life that way? Or do I now go back into the quote unquote closet on this particular issue? And I was like, you know what? No, the people that can be helped by, when I found out I was HIV positive, if people hadn't been posting things like, you equals you, or, you can't transmit this disease, the people who stood up and said that were the people that gave me hope in that moment. So whoever hears this and finds out tomorrow that they're HIV positive, they can be like, well, wait, Joe said you equals you. There's other people out there like me. I'm not alone. And honestly, like, even so, after I found out I was HIV positive and then I got undetectable, I told Dan, I said, I want to take a trip and I want to tell people on Grindr that I'm HIV positive in another city and see how people respond. I don't want to do it here in Detroit where I live. And so we went to Atlanta and I was, texting people and I was like, hey, I'm HIV positive. And they're like, so I'm on PrEP. Who cares? I'm on PrEP, And so then that gave me the confidence to be able to come back to Detroit and do the same thing where I live. And everybody's been great. There's been a few people that are like, I'm not comfortable with sleeping with somebody that's HIV positive. And I'm like, that's fine.
That's their choice. Yeah.
I don't need to cuss you out. I don't need to yell at you. I don't need to tell you that you're a piece of shit. I can just be like, okay, I understand. There's a few people that are like, I would want you to wear a condom. And I'm like, okay, then that's fine. I respect that. I can make that decision to have sex with you or not. It's all a matter of, but for the most part, I've received a lot of support. The only people that have been a little bit negative are like the down low married guys. And let's face it, their problems are bigger than my HIV anyways. So
that's right. Yeah, they have enough problems already. No, and I feel like, and this might be part of your journey, right? So your journey so far this year has been, I would like to say that you've beat alcohol, and hopefully you're going to beat it for the rest of your life. But people have to understand that it's always going to be with you. It's always going to be, there's no cure for addiction.
Well, it's addiction is a disease, just like HIV. Addiction is a disease, and there's treatment for that disease, but I'll always live with that underlying issue. So as long as I take my treatment for my addiction, I can live a healthy, normal lifestyle. The same with my HIV. As long as I take my Dovato, I'm going to live a healthy, normal lifestyle. The same is the same, but I'll never be cured. I'll always be an alcoholic. So it's never going to be like, I've been sober for 5 years. I've been sober for 10 years. I can have a whiskey on the rocks or a vodka soda or whatever it is. I'm an alcoholic. And if I put that in my body, that to me is poison.
Yep.
And then my addiction takes back over. So, for today, I've beat the addiction. For today, I've taken my medicine. For today, I'm really happy with where my life is at. But it all, recovery teaches me that I get a reprieve from my disease based on my spiritual conditioning. However you want to look at that, God,
Exactly.
the universe, whatever. I'm taking care of myself through therapy. I'm dealing with my demons, and so I have enough peace today that I don't need to take alcohol to escape my life. That's how I see it.
Exactly. And I love that you are very open and discussing all of this with me today. I just think it's really important. So yeah, so now we still have the struggles, like we're still continuing. Like I know you've already had your first dose of Moderna, right?
Moderna. I got my first
So
dose of the Moderna vaccine.
You'll probably be visiting me before I can go there.
Yeah.
Because Canada is ridiculous. We're so slow here getting the vaccine. I'm furious. So we have pandemic life, so we still have challenges. I don't know what kind of things we'll be able to sort out this summer. I'm hoping that somewhere along the water we'll be able to meet each other at least. And that's as good as it can get at this point. So what does the future hold for you? What would you like? I don't want, and no one really knows the future, but let's say, what do you wish for 2021? What would you like?
For 2021, I want to continue to grow as a person first and foremost.
Good.
I want to be a little more comfortable in my skin each day than I was the day before. I'm learning to forgive myself for not being perfect in every single way, shape, form, fashion, and accept myself for as I am with my limitations. In 2021, I want to be kinder to myself. I want to take more time away from work because I'm learning that I deserve to be loved even if I'm not productive. I don't have to earn my right to be loved. I can be loved just by existing. So for 2021, I'm trying to take a little bit of time and focus on some of those things. My relationship with Dan, we're headed into year number 2, and be a better support system for him.
Yeah.
And grow with him. I want to fucking travel as soon as I get this fucking second dose. And I want to get out of the cold. That's, I don't know. I mean, my business continues to grow. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
I'm excited about where that's headed. So I think 2021 for me is just another year of kind of slow and steady growth. And as RuPaul would say, I'm going to try my best not to fuck it up.
Yeah, that's right. Don't fuck it up. Yeah, no, that's great. And it's hard. You can't think, because every day is a different day. Exactly. Right. You're taking one day at a time. So when someone says, what does the future hold? I think it's better to say, what do you like to see yourself doing this coming year? Right. For me, I would like to get vaccinated at some point, hopefully, because I work in the medical office, I'll be able to get it a little sooner than the general population. So we'll see. I'm sure there'll be some restrictions lifted over the summer. For people to be able to see people based on vaccinations and those kind of things. But, Joe, I wake up every day and I feel like I can't believe that my whole life I have lived and come to this, where I'm walking around today wearing a mask and in the grocery store and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's so surreal. I just can't believe this is still going on. And I hope that, they say that there's 2 more pandemics along the way. But I just hope that the rest of my life is not going to be like this with the restrictions. I can't believe the border's closed. All that time I would crisscross the border and do activities over there and get to spend time with you guys. And it's just, so I hope for me, 2021 is going to correct that so we can at least start to see each other. I wanted to go back because I talked about that one story. So I wanted to give this great story of last year. So last year I wanted to go to Ann Arbor because I was involved with Prism Men's Course, not the prison choir, the Prism Men's Course. And I wanted, because the border guard asked me one time when I was crossing back into Canada, where were you? And I said, I had choir practice. What's the name of the choir? I said, Prism Men's Course. He thought I had said prison men's course. Yes, I just said a prison. So we laughed a little at that. but I wanted to go see Sing Out. So they're an LGBTQ choir that's based in Ann Arbor. And I wanted Joe and I to go together to see this. So Joe and I are a little bit different. Like Joe can slip into something 5 minutes after it started. I want to be there 30 minutes. I want the trailers. I want the previews. I want the atmosphere. So we get there, we pick up our tickets, and then we're going to go eat. And now Joe is keeping a secret. He's not telling me where we're going to go eat. So I'm having a bit of anxiety about this because, as my friends know, I'm a very, very picky eater and I don't like to try new things. So they like to test me. So you take me, we're driving, and then I'm like, well, how far is this place? Because I'm like, are we going to have time to get back? Sean, we're going to have time to get back. Don't worry, we'll be back in plenty of time. So we get to this place, we park, and he's like, it's like Cuban, right? It's a Cuban fusion kind of taco.
It's a Cuban burger joint.
Yeah, Cuban. So as soon as I hear that, I'm like, Cuban and burger do not go together. So he's like, you're going to love this place. You got to try something new. You're going to love it. So I open up the door and it's full of millennials. So the millennials like to go to this new kind of style of eating, which is called like home style eating, which is like a bunch of picnic tables that are all kind of set up and you just sit with strangers, right? So right away I go in, it's packed. We have all these millennials sitting at all these kind of farmers tables. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to find here to eat and all this stuff? So of course, Joe was like, here she goes. She's having her breakdown. She's having her mental breakdown here. So we find a little spot in the back. Then we're like lining up to get our food. And I'm kind of looking at the board and I'm like, well, I want something that's like hamburger meat. So they're like, well, this is hamburger meat. You can get this. Okay. So we get that. Then I'm worried about there's no tables to sit, but then two people had left and we had this little stool area in the back with two stools and a ledge and we were able to eat there. So I did enjoy my experience, even though I was having a meltdown. Joe was very patient because I think some of my friends have learned too, though I try to get better at that stuff. That's not in all situations, but in this one, there was a lot of things kind of going on for the evening. So my friends are very patient to kind of they want to expose me to things and they know that I'm going to be okay with it. So I just have to kind of go through this grieving process or whatever. So the food was excellent. We head back, we get to the concert, we have a great time, and then we head home. And I think the weather was kind of crappy or whatever.
It was snowing.
Like, what the hell? So it was just all of these things that added. But I will say that why I wanted to bring this up is that I'm trying to work on being more open to trying new things. And that's what I've been doing in 2020, like cooking and doing all those kind of things so that I'm exposing myself to new food. So that way, when my friends take me out to these secret spaces, because they all know that I love Shake Shack. We go to Detroit, we only eat at Shake Shack.
It's fucking ridiculous. It is ridiculous. There are 9 million amazing restaurants in downtown Detroit, and this bitch wants to go to a glorified McDonald's and get a burger at Shake Shack.
Because it's safe. So it's just, so I've been working this year at trying to keep push boundaries, think outside the box a little bit. So I've had time to reflect on that. And of course, working on a YouTube channel, now starting a podcast. The podcast has been a lot of fun because I can have opportunities with all of you guys on here and share your journeys. Is there anything that you want to add in here? Anything you want to say, a story other than maybe about, you missed my mom. My mom is now shipped away.
I miss Pat and her love for the BBC.
The love for the BBC. Yeah.
No, I don't think there's anything. I'm really looking forward to the border being open. I'm really looking forward to traveling again.
Yes.
I can't wait for you to ruin every experience that I have in every other city in the world. I can't wait to go to bathhouses with you so we can get super clean again.
Super clean, yes.
Yeah, just get scrubbed up. I'm looking forward to, a new administration. I feel like we got really lucky here in the States we were able to avoid some pretty serious situations that could have ended very badly. Yeah. So I think we have an adult for a president again. And competent people in all of our major offices. So I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic as we move forward with this pandemic that we'll be able to kind of, I don't know, approach it through science and open things up, and you and I will be able to hang out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be able to see my friends in Canada, things like that.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to that kind of being behind us.
Yes.
And being able to move forward.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. So just in closing, I just wanted to say, Joe, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being very open and honest with us, and sharing your journey in life. I think I always learn something from you every time you tell me a story.
It's because I'm very fucking wise.
It's because you are wise and you read. My one friend says I'm smart because I read.
I don't read, but I'm just smart because I'm smart because I'm pretty.
Because you're pretty, exactly. So yeah, so thank you for sharing this story with us. It's always an amazing story when I hear it, and I'm glad that we were able to share it with the viewers. Guys, I really hope that you enjoyed listening to this. I hope that you enjoyed getting to know Joe a little bit better. Joe is a very important person in my life. So, guys, thank you for listening today. I just want to remind you that if you are not following me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Sean's Magical Odyssey. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Magical Sean. And guys, also, I do have a YouTube channel. I just celebrated my year anniversary. And you can see me live on there with a lot of fun stories and crafts and activities and some of the fun people in my life. And you can find me on YouTube at Sean's Magical Odyssey as well. So, Joe, thank you for joining me today. Maybe we can do some more stuff like this in the future, because I think there's a lot of stories that we can tell about our friendship. It's just that, people don't want to listen for 7 hours of stuff. So let's do this again. Did you feel okay doing this today? I wonder if you were a little bit nervous to.
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Some people
I was born to be a star.
Born to be a star. That's good. Even though you said at the beginning of this, you're not going to be showing the video part of this anywhere, are you?
Well, that's just because I was worried about my background. My background wasn't good. I got to make sure I'm making all the right statements.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're fine. So guys, thank you for listening today. Thank you for being a part of Sean's Magical Odyssey, and we'll see you next time.